Welcome back to another episode of BreBre Talks MMA. Sorry for the delay on the episode, but I was waiting for the UFC 300 announcements that Dana had promised, and we got them. We still don't have a main event for UFC 300. I don't think that'll be announced probably until, I don't know, maybe sometime later this month. I'm sure they're probably saving that, or maybe, who knows, maybe they don't even have that booked yet. But we do have some fights. So I'm also going to do a deep dive into UFC 297, Strickland versus Duplessis. So that will either be the next episode or the episode after, before, obviously I'm going to publish it before UFC 297 at some point. I just don't know exactly when. But yeah, so sorry for the delay on the episode. Not like anybody really cares, but just letting you know why I chose to wait to record this, because I want to get all the juicy news on UFC 300 and talk about it. We had a few fights already announced. So we had Prohaska versus Rakic. We had Cater versus Sterling. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. So we got some more announced, and the new fights that we have announced for UFC 300, one of them is a lightweight fight that is probably going to be a title. I guess it has title implications. So Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. That fight is booked for UFC 300. Charles Oliveira ranked number 1 right now. Obviously, he's kind of who we all thought would face Islam next, which I guess it's going to depend on, how he does against Tsarukyan now. I don't think that Gaethje got a fight announced, didn't he? All right, I'm trying to think here. Now I'm second guessing myself. Did Justin Gaethje get a fight announced? Oh. I found an article from MMA Fighting from June 10th. So it's been long enough time that things could have changed still, but he wants Gaethje in June, and then November he wants the winner of Oliveira versus Tsarukyan. Interesting. So I guess Gaethje, is he going to fight Islam next? Okay, I don't know. So there still could be a chance that Gaethje will fight Oliveira, or will fight Islam, I guess. But if that doesn't happen, then I think Islam definitely is going to fight the winner of Oliveira versus Tsarukyan. And if Tsarukyan beats Oliveira, that's going to be really interesting, because I think out of the lightweight division, there's really only a couple names that I think of that could give Makhachev problems. And one of those names is Arman Tsarukyan. So this is interesting. This is really interesting. This is a huge step for Tsarukyan, and he's already fought Islam before. That's the thing. He's already fought him before. He didn't get finished in that fight. So I really do think this is interesting. And if Tsarukyan wins, then will Islam move up to welterweight? I don't know. I don't know. That would be a good time for him to move up to 170 if Tsarukyan wins against Oliveira, because I do think that Tsarukyan presents some real problems for Islam Makhachev. And think about it. So when did they fight first? It's been years, I think. It's been a while. So let me look up Arman Tsarukyan. This is who I think will be the next lightweight champion. Honestly. I really do think so. So the last time he fought Islam Makhachev was, it's been years. It's been almost 5 years. It was in April of 2019. They fought. Great fight, by the way. And it went to decision. It was 3 rounds, though. So 3-round fight. Yeah, that's a lot of time for him to improve. That's the thing. So he was only 23 when they fought. 23 or 22 or 23. Something like that. Let's see, when's his birthday? October 11th, 1996. So I'm not good at math. So he turns 28 this year in October. So he was like 23 when they fought the first time. That's a lot of time to improve it. 23-year-old Arman Tsarukyan, not the same as 27, 28-year-old Arman Tsarukyan, just saying. So I do think that he could. I think him and Gamrot are 2 guys that could be tricky for Islam Makhachev. I'm not saying, to be honest, I'm not really sold on Gamrot yet winning the belt at any point. I mean, it could happen. I do think he has a lot of talent, but I don't know. I'm not sold on that. I'm way more confident in Tsarukyan than I am in Gamrot. But I think those 2 guys, out of everybody at lightweight, because think about it, at lightweight, how many more times can Oliveira just go in and destroy people? Like, he's probably getting to the point in his career where it's like he's either going to, win another title, or he's probably going to be, pretty much done with his title run. And honestly, he's left such a huge legacy already that I don't think he really has anything left to prove, to be honest. I think that he could enter a new era of his career where he could just make a bunch of money, kind of like what Dustin Poirier is trying to do. And which actually, that's another thing I want to talk about, because that's what I thought Dustin Poirier was trying to do. But then they just announced a fight between him and Benoit Saint Denis, which to me does not feel like a money fight at all. To me, that feels like, Saint Denis they're trying to basically build Saint Denis, get him a win over Dustin Poirier, and then get him into the conversation of the title at some point. I think he's probably a lot further away from a title than Tsarukyan is. He's not even in the top 10. So, but let's talk about that for a second, because I am a really big fan of Saint Denis. Really big fan. And I've been impressed with him so far, but I do think that Dustin Poirier is a huge jump in skill level from who he's been fighting. So, I mean, he beat Moises, he beat Frivola. In the Frivola fight, that was crazy. Like, that was awesome. That was crazy. So, I think I'm excited about him. I am excited, but I mean, if you think about it, I think the only fight he's lost was a welterweight fight. And I think the Poirier fight is at lightweight. Because he used to fight at welterweight before the UFC. So, let's see here. Dustin Poirier. I'm really interested in this fight because it's basically somebody who's undefeated in the UFC, undefeated in the lightweight division, but to be fair to Dustin Poirier, he's undefeated with 5 fights in the UFC. Or, well, undefeated at lightweight in the UFC with 5 lightweight fights. The first fight in the UFC was welterweight. So, technically, he's not undefeated in the UFC, but he's undefeated in the lightweight division in the UFC. So, there's that explanation for you. But But Dustin has so much experience, and he's only fought nothing but killers. Let's just take a look real quick at who Dustin Poirier has fought in the last, let's say, 5 years. So, Justin Gaethje, killer. Michael Chandler, killer. Charles Oliveira, killer. Conor McGregor, literally the most famous fighter of all time. Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's a killer too, and very underrated. Khabib. And to be fair, he gave Khabib one of his hardest fights. He almost had Khabib in a guillotine, and, you know, he really tried to win that fight, but it was like, it's Khabib. You're not going to win. Max Holloway. Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, the first fight. Anthony Pettis, Eddie Alvarez. Like, look at this. It's not even close, the level of competition, you know. And I love Saint Denis. I think he's phenomenal. But I think this might be, I don't know. This might be tough for him. This could be a really, really challenging fight for Saint Denis. But one thing that he does have on his side is his youth. He's 28 years old, so he's young. He's at that point in his career where he could either go on like a huge winning streak and make a title run, or if he loses, then he's going to have to like work his way back up into the rankings, and, you know, it's interesting. So I don't know. So here's the problem with Dustin Poirier. First of all, they're both southpaws. So this is going to be different because I don't know if, let me see, has he fought many other southpaws in the UFC? I don't know. I don't think Frivola is a southpaw, is he? Oh, Moises is a southpaw. Okay, so whatever. But I feel like Dustin Poirier is tricky. He's tricky. And I don't know. It's a hard fight to call because Dustin Poirier is at a point in his career where he's either past his prime or he could derail. He could be like a gatekeeper, you know. Is he going to be a gatekeeper, or is he going to literally just have a Tony Ferguson, you know, effect? Are we going to see that happen? I don't know. Because Justin Gaethje, you know, put a pretty big beating on Tony Ferguson, and ever since then he hasn't been the same. And Justin Gaethje knocked out Dustin Poirier with a head kick. Is Dustin Poirier going to be the same? Gaethje seems to be, you know, kind of ruining people's careers. So, and it's funny because I never expected Justin Gaethje to be the guy to do that to Tony. Didn't expect that at all. Gosh, this is so hard. This is so hard to call. I don't think I can call it. I don't think I can pick. I mean, Saint Denis is very good. He's very good. He has a judo background. He's a good striker. A good kickboxer. So I don't know. Here's where I think Poirier could really have an advantage, though, is on the ground. I do think that Poirier could potentially have an advantage on the ground, and with his boxing and his footwork. That's the thing. There's so many aspects of Dustin Poirier's game that I feel like are so slept on. His footwork, his defense. I mean, obviously he didn't have it in the Gaethje fight, but when you're a southpaw going against an orthodox, sometimes you are opened up to kicks like that. So I wonder if that maybe just caught him off guard. You know, he didn't see the kick coming, and I don't know, because that was a perfectly placed kick. I don't know of many fighters that, if they got hit with that, would have been able to continue. So, and I sound like, you know, I'm biased towards Dustin Poirier, and I'm not. I actually really am a fan of Saint Denis. But I do think that Poirier's boxing, and combine that with his jiu-jitsu and his wrestling skills, honestly, Dustin Poirier's wrestling is underrated. I feel like people don't really talk about that enough. I mean, he's not Usman, he's not, Chandler, but he's got great wrestling. He's got phenomenal wrestling. So this is a tough one. I think Dustin Poirier could submit Benoit Saint Denis. I do. I think he could submit him. I think that would be probably the most likely scenario here. Or Saint Denis could potentially knock him out. I don't think this fight's going the distance. I do not think this fight is going the distance, but if it does, I'll be very happy because it will be a phenomenal fight if it does. If this fight goes the distance, that's going to be fight of the night. But I don't think it will. And this is going to be on UFC 299. I think this is the one in Miami. So I think that's the O'Malley card, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, O'Malley versus Vera 2 in Miami. This card is stacked. I talked about this last time. MVP versus Kevin Holland is on this card too. Gamrot's on this card. Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Yeah, there's tons of great fights on this card. Michelle Pajeda at middleweight. Macy Barber versus Caitlin Chukagian. That's going to be a banger. Yeah, so God, this fight is so frustrating because it's like I want both of them to win because I don't want Dustin Poirier to lose. Obviously, I do think there's a possibility he could get knocked out, but I also think there's a huge possibility, a bigger possibility, that he could use his experience against Saint Denis and get him in a submission and, I don't know. Because now Saint Denis has a blueprint. He can look at the Justin Gaethje fight, see how he set up the head kick, and he could set up his own head kick easily. Maybe not easily, but still. But then also Poirier can look back on that fight and be like, oh, here's where I made the mistake. Let me not do that again in this fight. So it's, it's hard to say who's going to win this one. I'm sitting here. I'm trying, guys. I can't do it. I can't call it. All I think is that it's definitely not going to go the distance. That's for sure. Don't think it's going to go the distance. But we'll see. We shall see. So anyways, more fights on UFC 300. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Who saw this coming? I did not see this coming at all. This is really surprising to me. I love it. That's a great fight. I think Figueiredo takes that one. After what I saw what he did to Rob Font. Yeah. I think Figueiredo easily is going to destroy Cody Garbrandt. I know that sounds a little crazy, but look at the skills of Figueiredo. And honestly, I think he looked better at bantamweight than he did at flyweight against Rob Font. So the only thing is that Cody Garbrandt does have really good wrestling and Rob Font really doesn't. So Cody Garbrandt does present more problems for Figueiredo than Rob Font did. But at the same time, man, Figueiredo looked really good in his debut at bantamweight. So I don't know. But that's going to be a great fight either way. That's going to be a great fight. And then we got, this one's not on UFC 300, but we got Rose Namajunas versus Amanda Ribas. I've been begging for this fight for so long, and it finally got booked. I even thought, I'm like, that is the perfect fight at women's flyweight. Because Rose Namajunas is moving up, Amanda Ribas is moving up, so they're both around the same size, but then they don't have to cut all the weight. So it's perfect. And it's such a great matchup too. Amanda Ribas, she's judo and jiu-jitsu background. Rose, she's got amazing footwork. She's got crazy reach. She's got a great jab. She's did all that training with Trevor Whitman. She's got great boxing. And she's also got really underrated jiu-jitsu. Now, I don't think she should play on the ground with Amanda Hebos. I think that would be a huge mistake. We saw what happened to Paige Van Zandt when she got to the ground with her. I don't think it's going to be necessarily the same thing. I think Rose is definitely going to be much harder to submit than Paige Van Zandt, obviously. But I do think that this is going to be a fun fight. And Amanda Hebos, I don't know. I mean, she's got good striking. She really does. She has good striking. I do think that Rose has better striking. So it'll be interesting. I think it'll either be Rose wins by decision, or maybe a knockout or TKO, or Amanda Hebos via submission. So we'll see. We shall see. That's a really interesting fight. Yeah. And then Rebellis de Spain versus Josh Parisian just got announced. I think Josh Parisian's probably, going to get annihilated. Rebellis de Spain has the longest reach ever, I think, in UFC history. And this is, I believe, his debut, because he was in Fury. And that's where he, I guess, got discovered. Because I think the UFC and Fury, that's where they're getting a lot of talent now, is from Fury. And he's like 6'7". He's a monster. So this, yeah, that's a scary fight for Josh Parisian. I mean, wow. Yeah, that's probably not going to go well for him, unfortunately. And then we also had another heavyweight fight announced. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. That's a really interesting fight. Shamil Gaziev was on Contender Series this year. He's undefeated. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a decorated kickboxer, and, he's had some great performances in the UFC, but kind of went on a downturn a little bit. So I'm interested to see how he does. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect in this fight. I really don't. I think that Shamil Gaziev has good ground game, so maybe that could be his path to victory. I don't know. We'll see. Also, we had, let's see what else. Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori was announced. That's a huge fight at middleweight. I think if Brendan Allen wins that fight, he definitely should get a title shot for sure. I thought that his last performance was enough to at least kind of put him in the conversation. Maybe not necessarily a title shot. But if he wins against Vettori, I think Vettori is an opponent that if you can beat him, then you should get a title shot. I just think that you should get a title shot. And that's why I thought Cannonier was going to get a title shot when he beat Vettori, and he didn't. So maybe, I don't know. I think if Brendan Allen can submit him or beat him really bad, then I think he could get a title shot. But we'll see. I mean, Vittori's really tough, so I think submitting him probably is going to be the only option to finish him. I don't think you're going to knock him out. So, because I don't even think Vittori's ever been knocked down. So this is going to be that's a tough fight for Brendan Allen. That is probably his toughest fight to date, to be honest. Tougher than Paul Craig, for sure. So, I love the fight, though. I think it's great. But I think his best bet, probably would be to try to submit him, because Brendan Allen has really good ground game. And Vettori does too. That's the thing. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I love it. I love that fight. And then Dominic Reyes versus Carlos Ulberg. I think that was originally scheduled, and then they canceled it. I think Carlos Ulberg had an injury. I don't know. Something happened. So they, I guess, rebooked it, so that fight will happen. Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan is announced for UFC 300. This is the first title fight that has been announced for UFC 300. So this is going to be the co-main event, I would imagine, unless they have 3 title fights, which that would be just bananas. I wouldn't be mad about it. I do think the main event of UFC 300 either has to be one of two things. If it's not a title fight, it needs to be a huge name. 2 huge names, not just one. It needs to be 2 huge names. So, like, they were talking about, Mike Perry was talking about he wants to fight Nate Diaz, wants to headline UFC 300. I don't hate that fight. I don't hate it. That's another thing I was confused about, because they announced, well, it wasn't really official, but they announced they were targeting Nate Diaz versus Masvidal in a boxing match, I guess in March. There's been no details. You know, there's no promotion announced, there's no date, there's no location, none of that. The rules, none of that has been announced. So this is very, like, up in the air still. So why wouldn't they just do MMA? I mean, I guess MMA against Nate Diaz is tricky because of his ground game. But Masvidal already beat him once, and Nate Diaz hasn't gotten better. So it's like, why wouldn't they just do it in MMA? Why wouldn't they do it UFC 300 headline? Masvidal versus Diaz. I mean, yeah, that might be tough. I don't know if you could really sell that as a headliner. I think you could sell Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz. I think you could sell that. I think you could sell Mike Perry versus Masvidal. Trying to think of some other options. I mean, Mike Perry's become such a huge star in BKFC, so it's like, you could throw him on a pay-per-view very easily and headline it, and it would sell easily. So, I don't know. But I don't know who the headliner's going to be. Because they're trying to say that Jones and Stipe are going to fight. So I guess that's going to be a thing. You know who I'd rather see fight John Jones than Stipe? First of all, I'd rather see him fight Tom Aspinall, but that's not going to be a draw. I mean, maybe it will be when... I just don't think Tom Aspinall is a big enough star yet for that. And that's why they're not booking that. But if MMA was fair, which it's not, which people need to realize, none of this is ever fair. The title shots, there's never fairness involved here, okay? It's always been this way. It's always been a little bit of a circus. And whoever gets the most attention, whoever sells the most pay-per-views, a lot of times they're going to get the fights that they want. It's just how it works, you know? So that's why I think that Aspinall is not getting that. Because I don't think he's a big enough star yet. Which sucks, because I really want to see that fight. Because I think he could beat John Jones, for sure. But you can't have somebody who people, to most casual fans, is still relatively unknown. You can't have him go in there and beat John Jones in the first round. That's going to ruin John Jones' legacy. You cannot have that happen. Like, you just can't. And the thing is, like, I do think that Tom Aspinall is well known in the MMA circuit, but you guys got to think, we are hardcore MMA fans. Like, if you're listening to this, you're probably a pretty big MMA fan. We don't look at the sport the same way that people... That's why you got to talk to people outside of the sport to understand the sport better and how the business side of it works. You're not going to understand the business side of MMA if you only talk to people in MMA. You got to talk to people outside and see what they think. Because what they see, they just see big names. You know, they still think Conor McGregor is relevant. Conor McGregor is not relevant anymore in MMA. He hasn't fought in 2.5 years. You know, your wife is in media. Like, he's doing drugs. He's on his yacht. Like, he's not a fighter anymore. Like, you guys realize this? Conor McGregor is not even a fighter anymore. He's a billionaire. That's what he is. So, and of course, he's still a fighter. He still trains and whatever. But he's not training like Michael Chandler. Okay? He's not training like Charles Oliveira. He's not training like any of these. Even John Jones is training more than Conor McGregor. What does that tell you? You know? let's give you $1 billion or millions of dollars and let's see what you do. How motivated are you going to be to go fight Michael Chandler? You know, I don't blame him. So, what was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about Tom Aspinall. Yeah, I don't think in the casual MMA sphere or combat sports fans, because you got to think, most people buying pay-per-views, most people buying tickets, they're not hardcore fans. They're not. Or the people that are going to Buffalo Wild Wings once a year to watch fights, you think they're going to get excited about Aspinall versus Jones? No, because they haven't been following the sport. They don't know. They don't even know that Tom Aspinall just won the interim belt. They don't even know that. Most of them. I guarantee you. I talk to these people all the time. They don't know anything. So you put Aspinall versus Jones on a pay-per-view, people go, huh? Huh? Who's this guy? Because they haven't been paying attention. That's what you guys need to understand about the casual fans. And I'm not knocking casual fans, but that's a majority of the people that put money in the UFC's pocket is casual fans. Okay? The people at Buffalo Wild Wings that drink 2 beers and, oh, I could beat this guy. Just bleed. Those people, that's who's paying the UFC all this money. Buying pay-per-views, going to the Buffalo Wild Wings, you know. And I hate to be real with you guys about this, but it's true. Because the people who watch all the fight nights, that watch the Contender Series, you know, we're a small percentage of those pay-per-view buys. We're a small percentage of that. And it's sad, but it's true. Most MMA fans are not educated on the sport. They don't follow the sport like we do. They just don't. But if they see Jon Jones' name, they'll go watch it. But a lot of people are going to see Aspinall versus Jon Jones, and this is Jon Jones returning. You know, he already did his big return, his big move to heavyweight against Ciryl Gane. And that fight was originally supposed to be Francis Ngannou, remember? So that fight, his heavyweight debut, I don't think they needed a big name for that. They didn't. They didn't need a big name because there was a lot of mystery of like, oh, how is Jon Jones going to look at heavyweight? How is he going to do? Now there's no more mystery. Well, there still is because we don't know what his striking looks like. His striking is probably not good at heavyweight. Let's just be honest. His striking is probably not going to look that good. It's just probably not, you know. But do you know who they could put in there with Jon Jones that would sell? Alex Pereira. They absolutely could. And the thing is that fight would probably go very similarly to the Ciryl Gane fight, but that would be great for the UFC because then, you know, it's like, okay, here's this kickboxer. He's got this crazy genetics. You know, he's a freak athlete and actually has decent ground game, but a heavyweight, I don't know. You know, Jon Jones at heavyweight grappling is kind of a scary idea against somebody who really doesn't have that kind of grappling experience. So, and they're both, you know, their natural weight class is the same, you know, so I think they're both around the same frame, same size. So I don't think it's that crazy of an idea, honestly, because it's like Jon Jones isn't a natural heavyweight. You know, this fight could easily happen at light heavyweight if they were both around the same time in their prime. You know, this fight could have easily happened. So, I mean, Dominic Reyes fought Jon Jones. So why would it be that crazy of an idea? Ciryl Gane fought him at heavyweight and got annihilated. So I'm just saying. I think that Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones would be a bigger draw than Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones. But the reason that they're doing the Stipe fight is because it's a legacy fight. That's what it is. It's a legacy fight. And as hardcore fans, we really don't want to see this fight, to be honest, because we know who we really want to see Jon Jones fight. It's Tom Aspinall. But the UFC can't afford to let Jon Jones lose to Tom Aspinall. They can't. That would be crazy. And I'm not saying that Tom Aspinall for sure would win, but I honestly think that the odds are in more his favor than Jon Jones, because he's a natural heavyweight. He's huge. He's very athletic. He moves even better than Cyril Gane, I think. Because he also has the grappling skills. That's the difference. Cyril Gane didn't have the grappling skills. He didn't have the same kind of experience that Tom Aspinall has. So I think that Tom Aspinall is a more dangerous fight, much more dangerous fight for Jon Jones than Stipe, much more dangerous fight than Pereira, more dangerous than Cyril Gane, and more dangerous than all of them. But the difference is everybody thinks that Stipe is going to lose against Jon Jones. Let's just be real. Everybody thinks that, and there is a possibility that Jon Jones could lose that fight, I think. But it's not a very large possibility. It's a small possibility. I think that Jon Jones will probably be a decent-sized favorite in that matchup. But with Pereira, here's the difference between Tom Aspinall and Pereira. Pereira, people will start talking. They'll be like, oh, this kickboxer, he's moving up to heavyweight, and he just won 2 belts, and, you know, who knows? Can he hang with Jon Jones on the ground? There's conversation. People will be interested. People will be talking about it. People will be like, oh, well, what if he catches him with, you know, he's got a lot of power. What if he catches Jon Jones? So there's a conversation. But I still think Jon Jones wins that fight. But I do think that it's more interesting than Stipe or Aspinall. So that's my take. I'm not saying that fight should happen, but I'm just saying that it's more interesting, and I think it would sell more pay-per-views than Aspinall versus Jones or Jones versus Stipe. I just think the Stipe legacy, it's still there, obviously, but I think it's kind of lost its spark a little bit just because it's been a while since he's won a fight, you know? It's been a while. So, I mean, the DC fight, that was the last time he won. That was years ago. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's a crazy place we're at with MMA right now. But another fight that got announced was Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. This is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, I thought they were going to give him Deontay Wilder. But then you think about it, and it's like, well, if Francis beat, and I'm not doing boxing math here, but I kind of am. So if Francis beat Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder, what do you think Francis Ngannou's going to do to Deontay Wilder? He's going to knock him out. He's going to knock him out, for sure. I mean, think about it. Francis Ngannou is a good boxer. He's good. He is a good boxer. And I know Tyson Fury won the fight, guys. I'm not dumb. But you guys know my take on this. If you've been paying attention, I thought Francis Ngannou won the fight. I thought Tyson Fury won the match. So you put Francis Ngannou in there with Deontay Wilder. I think, yeah, I don't like Deontay Wilder's chances in that fight. I really don't. It's because Francis Ngannou's power is different. I think he has very special, unique power. So yeah, that's my take. But Anthony Joshua? I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough fight for Francis. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think Anthony Joshua, is better than Tyson Fury. In some ways. So, I don't know. And I'm not a boxing analyst, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I am. But I do think that is a much more difficult fight for Francis than Tyson Fury. I don't think Tyson Fury took that fight seriously at all. I think Anthony Joshua will take this seriously, 100%. So, I also think that Anthony Joshua is much more athletic than Tyson Fury. There's a bug in here. So that's my opinion on that. Another fight that was announced. Chris Weidman versus Bruno Silva. Why are they doing this to Chris Weidman? Why? Why? Why would they put him in there with a Brazilian knockout artist with very good leg kicks? What are you doing? What are you doing? No. Nobody asked for this. Why? Put him in there with a grappler or something. Bruno Silva? What do you think? Like, what are you thinking? That is not a good matchup for Chris Weidman at all. I don't want that. Please cancel that fight. Please. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. No, thank you. Because Chris Weidman, first of all, I don't even think his leg is really healed. I mean, first it was, what was that? The Uriah Hall fight where he broke his leg? I think it was. Yeah, the Uriah Hall fight, he broke his leg. And then even in the Tavares fight, his leg got just demolished again. Both legs. So he's been knocked out so many times. I just don't like this at all. Why? Why are they doing this? I don't like it. I don't at all. I don't support this whatsoever. There's so many other matchups you could give him. Why would they? I'm sorry, guys. This is such a horrible idea. It's just not good. It's not good. That's my thoughts. And I love Chris Weidman. That's why I'm disappointed. Because this is not a good matchup for him. At all. I'm trying to think who would be a better fight. Even Bo Nickel would be a better matchup than Bruno Silva. Man, that would be a great fight. Can you imagine Bo Nickel versus Chris Weidman? That would be amazing. I would love to watch that. That would be phenomenal. But Bruno Silva versus Chris Weidman? Please, no. Please make it stop. Because Chris Weidman, at one point, I don't think people understand how good Chris Weidman is. That's the thing. Like, Chris Weidman in his prime was a monster. And then he kind of just started getting knocked out all the time. Back to back to back to back to back. He had a couple wins, you know. But this fight is... Why? Why? I think Sean Strickland would be a better matchup. Honestly. Like, because people don't understand, just because Bruno Silva isn't a big name, that doesn't mean anything. This guy has 20 knockouts. 20. That means most of the time he fights people, they get knocked out. Yeah. Please, no. I mean, there is a chance that Chris Weidman could try to submit him or something, but he does have slick submission game too. You know, he's a black belt. He's Brazilian. He's very dangerous everywhere. So that's why I really don't like this fight. I don't know. I really do worry about the leg kicks. That's the first thing I worry about with this fight. And then I also worry about, you know, him on the ground. Is he going to be the same? Is his wrestling going to be the same with the injuries to his leg as it was before? That's what I worry about. Because I would think prime Chris Weidman, you know, his wrestling skills in his prime, could easily take him down, submit him. Or take him down, ground and pound him. But now, with all these injuries and he's getting older, the weight cutting gets harder, I don't know. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but it just, to me, this doesn't feel like a good situation for Chris Weidman. But I hope he wins. I hope Chris Weidman wins, because if Bruno Silva wins, what's it's not going to do anything for him. You know, it's like, oh, you beat out of his prime Chris Weidman. You're 34 years old. Where are you going to go from here? So it's not really going to be... I just want Chris Weidman to retire with a win. I want him to retire with a win, so I would like to see Chris Weidman win this fight, but man, what a horrible matchup. Jeez. Some of these fights sometimes I see, I'm just like, why would they do this? But anyways, whatever. Do you guys think Chandler versus Conor is going to happen? It's just, who cares at this point? Like I said last time, it's not going to feel real until they're at the freaking press conference. Actually, at this point, it's not going to feel real until they make weight. And Conor's a favorite. What a joke that is. What a joke. Conor's betting favorite against Michael Chandler. Conor, who is openly using drugs and partying constantly, is a favorite against Chandler, who looks like he's training like David freaking Goggins every day. How? I don't get it. What a joke. What a joke. In a boxing match, okay, Conor's the favorite, whatever. Kickboxing match, even then, maybe Conor's the favorite. But MMA, no. No. And the fact that he's a favorite honestly makes me very suspicious. Like, is this fixed? Maybe a little bit. If Chandler gets knocked out by Conor McGregor in 10 seconds, that's going to make me suspicious for sure. That's going to make me very suspicious. I don't know. I'm not saying the fight's fixed, guys, but I'm just saying it's very odd that Conor, who hasn't fought in 2.5 years, coming off a major injury, would be a favorite in this fight. Hasn't even been training hardly. You know? What is going on here? I don't get it. Mark Hunt apparently is returning to combat sports. Not to MMA. Apparently he's going to go to BKFC. And I think he'll actually probably do really well in BKFC. I don't know if he's signed a contract with them or anything yet. But I think that it's interesting because Juggernaut's pretty much... I mean... He's been like... They've been trying to make him the face of BKFC, which honestly didn't work because Mike Perry is now the face of BKFC. But they've been trying to make Juggernaut the face. And I don't... For some reason, I don't think they want Juggernaut to, you know, really... They don't want to risk him losing, I don't think. So if they put Mark Hunt in there, I mean... Unless Mark Hunt gets in there and he just looks old and slow and just, you know, whatever. But there's guys that are older that are dominating in BKFC, like Houston Alexander. He's like 50 years old. So I don't think it's... I don't know. It could go one of two ways. Either Mark Hunt goes in there, destroys everyone, or Mark Hunt is just out of his prime completely and just shouldn't be fighting anymore. I think it could go one of two ways. But I think honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Hunt goes to BKFC and just destroys everybody. And that's not going to be a good look for BKFC if that happens. It's not. You know? Because Mark Hunt hasn't fought. When's the last time Mark Hunt even fought? Gosh, it's been a long, long time. Been a long time. Yeah, 2018 was the last time he fought. I don't know, man. How old is he? 49. Yeah, I don't know. I still think he wins in BKFC. I don't know. I still think he wins because they say the last thing to go is your power. And, you know, when you don't have the grappling and you don't have to train for all that, it's a lot easier, you know, on these fighters. They don't have to train for all the grappling and kicking and all that stuff. So I think he could go in there and destroy him. Destroy whoever they put in front of him. But we'll see. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting. What else was announced? Brian Battle versus Andre Lusa. It's interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I covered everything. Unless there, well, let me check one more time before I get off here and make sure nothing else was announced while I was talking. Because this sport moves fast. There's a lot going on at once in this game. Oh my gosh, they're doing a karate combat party at Asim's mom's house, hosted by Rick Ross. What is going on? What is this? Insanity. That's funny. If they invite me, I mean, I'll go. I'll go if they invite me. I'll go. That'd be funny, actually. That's crazy, though. What is Rick Ross doing with MMA? Or with karate combat, whatever you want to call it. I actually like karate combat. I think it's pretty cool. Have they announced anything else? Let me check. Let me check here, see what's going on. I mean, I know they just announced Garbrandt versus Figueiredo. That's a huge fight. Yeah, I don't see anything else really that needs to be talked about. I mean, there's been other fights announced, but nothing big besides the ones I already mentioned, so yeah. Oh, Thiago Moises versus Brad Riddell. That's a good fight. That'll be fun. But yeah, I'm excited for UFC 300. It's looking like it's gonna be freaking insane. I'm excited for UFC 299 and 297. And I'm going to do a deep dive on UFC 297 next week for you guys. So, and then this Saturday is actually a really good fight night card. Ankalaev versus Walker, the rematch. The last fight, I think it was the fight it was in Abu Dhabi. Ankalaev threw an illegal knee. And then it turned out to be, I guess, I can't remember. Was it a no contest? I thought it was a no contest. Yeah, it was a no contest. And then Mateus Nicolau versus Manel Kape. That's going to be really interesting. Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez. I thought that was really interesting. I was watching, I guess it was like an interview or press conference or something, and Gabriel was saying he didn't know who Jim Miller was. Huh? What? Sorry. Excuse me, say that again? You don't know who Jim Miller is and you are an MMA fighter? What a joke. What a joke. How can you not know who Jim Miller is? See, that I don't understand. And I'm not hating on, Gabriel, but Jesus, pay attention to your sport. How can you be involved in a sport and not even know who some of the legends are of your sport? And you're about to fight him. Well, you're about to find out who he is because he's probably going to submit you. Because if you've never watched Jim Miller fight and you're about to fight him, you're screwed. You're screwed. You are screwed because Jim Miller is dangerous. Jim Miller is dangerous. So, yikes. Now he could be joking. He could be playing this, like, oh, I don't know who he is, playing the part, whatever. And then go in there and destroy Jim Miller. He could do that. But if he's being honest, I mean, that's just dumb. Like, that is just dumb. Why would you not pay attention to what's going on in your sport that you're competing in? I don't get that at all. I think if you're a fighter, you should study the sport, like study the greats, study the legends, especially in your weight class. Like, I don't know. That is just crazy to me. That is just insane. And he's been a fighter for a long time. It's not like he's a new guy, Gabriel Benitez has been fighting for quite a while. So it just kind of makes me think that he might be playing a character right now. He might be faking it. Like, oh, I don't know who he is. Yeah, right. I call BS on that. Ricky Simone versus Mario Batista. I am really excited for that fight. Very, very, very excited for that fight. Bruno Ferreira versus Phil Hawes is on this card. Andrei Arlovsky versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think Waldo Cortez is the guy that fought... Don't tell me the name. Who did he fight last? Was it Justin Tafa? Or was one of the... Oh, who was it? I gotta look it up. I thought it was Justin Tafa. But maybe I'm wrong. Oh, no, it was Lucas Briscoe. Oh, I know what I'm thinking of. He was supposed to fight Junior Tafa. Originally, he was supposed to fight him last year, and it never happened. He does have a win over Chase Sherman. So, and then the last fight he won was Lucas Bresky. Which isn't a big name or anything by any means. So, I don't know. I think that is a winnable fight for Andrei Arlovsky. But who knows? He's getting up there. He's getting up there. I mean, there's got to get to a point where it's like, okay, every fighter gets to that point, I feel like. In the UFC, they could go to other promotions and dominate when they're 45, but in the UFC, usually you hit a certain point and you can't hang with some of the elite anymore. It's just, it's just how it goes. Doesn't mean they're a bad fighter. Another big fight on this card, Joshua Van versus Felipe Bunes. Really excited to see Joshua Van fight again. Nicholas Mota versus Tom Nolan. That's a great fight. That is a really, really interesting fight because Tom Nolan was on Contender Series. He was one of the fighters that really stood out on Contender Series. I'm not sure. I'm going to look up his record because I can't remember what his record is. I'm pretty sure he's undefeated. Yeah, he's 6-0. He's 23 years old. He's really young. Wow, Nicholas Mota, that's an interesting that's an interesting debut fight for him, because Nicholas Mota is tough. He trains at Extreme. Very tough, very experienced. I mean, he's got let's see, who he has a win over somebody. I can't remember who it is. Joe Selecki. Yeah, that was before the UFC, but he has a win over Joe Selecki. Which to me, that was like probably one of his wins that I guess stood out to me the most. And then his most recent fight was a no contest. I thought he should have lost the fight via submission, but the ref, I don't know, it was a mess. But I guess he did get knocked out in the first round before that. I forgot about that. So, well, maybe it's not as bad of a matchup for Tom Nolan as I thought. But Tom Nolan is huge, and that is one thing that might be a huge problem for Nicholas Mota, is that Tom Nolan is 6'3" at lightweight. I mean, that's huge. And he was one on Contender Series that I was like, oh my god, this guy is going to be a monster. I think all of his fights have been... I'm trying to think. This is his first UFC fight. And before that because he is Australian, so he doesn't fight in the same regional promotions as a lot of these other fighters. So, yeah, he was in Eternal MMA. Interesting. He does have quite a few amateur fights as well. Looks like he has 6 or 7 amateur fights. 6, I guess. I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah, he'll probably win this fight. He looked really good on Contender Series, so we'll see. But Nicholas Mota, he's good. I don't know. I feel like he could surprise some people, but at the same time, Tom Nolan seems like he's definitely on a hot streak. So, Fareed Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. That's interesting. Basharat's undefeated still, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, this is a good card. Matthew Summelsberger versus Preston Parsons. Yeah, this is a good card. I mean, it's not going to be anywhere near as good as UFC 297, which is what we're all waiting for. But it's, you know what? We haven't had fights in weeks. I'll take it. And my prediction for Ankalaev versus Walker, I think Ankalaev is going to win via KO. That's what I think. I think he's going to win via KO. Yeah, well, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for listening and joining me. I'm really excited for this year. It's shaping up to be a great year for MMA already. There's tons of fights. And they also announced Gamebred. Dos Santos versus Belcher. So Alan Belcher and Junior Dos Santos are going to fight. I believe it's going to be the main event March 2nd. So I think so. I don't know if a date was announced yet, but whatever. I know they have an event on March 2nd, so hopefully it'll be that one. But yeah, so lots going on, and it's going to be a very interesting year, not only for the UFC, but just for the entire landscape of MMA. So I'm really excited for the first fight card of 2024. Saturday, Ankalaev versus Walker. Super pumped for this. So again, thank you guys all for listening. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments. Let's talk about fights, and I will see you next week.